Welcome back. I'm Cody for Big Beaver Cards, and we're looking back on another year of awesome NHL rookie cards. This year, 1987-88. Now, we're not just going to have one or two cards in this list. There's a few, and there's a grip of honorable mentions. You know how we started. Anthony, roll the intro. So like I was saying, we are running short on years that are going to have that Topps and O-Pee-Chee exclusivity in hockey. We're going to see that come to an end in just a couple of short years. But for now, it's an O-Pee-Chee dominated list. Once again, let's start off 87-88 and take a look at our honorable mentions. Let's take a look. Here we've got a list of hockey players that did a lot in their careers, but again, we're just a little shy in accolades from making our list. We start up in the top left-hand corner and take a look at a guy who maybe 5 years or a generation before was the type of player you'd see in a Jeremy Roenick or a Keith Primeau, a tough, gritty, in-the-corners goal scorer who would use his body and was always effective shift in and shift out. Rick Tocchet for the Philadelphia Flyers. He played for a few teams throughout his career, had a soft touch around the net, and got into a little bit of issues with gambling after his career. You guys can go ahead and Google that and look at that one yourself. Moving just to the right of Rick Tocchet, we see a hometown favorite of mine, Esa Tikkanen, very, very effective player in the 1988 and 1990 playoff runs that led to the Edmonton Oilers winning Stanley Cups. We won 5 and 7 years. Esa was there for a couple of the last ones. Really effective throughout his career, went on to play for the Rangers. I believe might have got a cup with them when they won in 94, when Messier called the comeback victory against the Devils in the Eastern Conference Finals, ended up scoring himself a hat trick, taking the Rangers to the finals, and ultimately winning the Rangers' first Stanley Cup in, I believe it was close to 50 years. I think Esa was on that Rangers team as well. Not enough personal accolades to make a Hall of Fame case or anything like that, but a lot of individual highlights and seasons that stood out as pretty above average. I would say he was an effective player for the good majority of his career, much like Rick Tocchet. He was very gritty, got under people's skin, was known as a bit of a pest in the days when being a pain in the neck was something that teams looked out for. I mean, Esa Tikkanen definitely known for getting under Gretzky's skin while Gretzky was in LA. Bill Ranford, you see to the right of him. Bill here in his Boston jersey, but obviously not known for what he did with Boston. Team Canada goaltender in the 1990 Canada Cup, not to mention taking over for Grant Fuhr in the 1990 season for the Edmonton Oilers, like we just mentioned with Esa Tikkanen, and going on that run to win a Stanley Cup, the only Stanley Cup the Oilers won without Gretzky at the captaincy. That was a Mark Messier captained Edmonton Oiler team. Bill Ranford, obviously known for that run, had a phenomenal late 80s and early 90s in the NHL between the pipes. Moving to the right, a defenseman that was taking no nonsense for the Washington Capitals and later on the North Stars. Picked himself up, I want to say, one Stanley Cup. I'm not 100% sure off the top of my head. What I would know is that Kevin Hatcher would take your head off. So you wouldn't want to be messing around. Kevin Hatcher, or am I mistaken? Kevin who played, oh no, you know what? Kevin was with Washington. I'm thinking of Darian Hatcher, his younger brother, who played with the Stars. Kevin Hatcher maybe didn't pick up that Stanley Cup. And Kevin Hatcher actually, as I'm thinking of it now, a bit more of a puck-moving, two-way defenseman, a guy who could play some fairly good defense and was good in the power play and definitely good moving the puck. His brother, Darian, who's not on this list, was a little bit more of a gritty, meet you in the corners and take the puck by force type of defenseman. Moving to the right and the last at the very top row is another player here in a Pittsburgh Penguin jersey in his rookie card, but known for his time, I would say, with the Edmonton Oilers, predominantly a 50-goal scorer, another guy that won a couple of cups. Craig Simpson, a phenomenal hockey player, a guy who played for a lot of different teams as his career went on. And the career It tapered off. It wasn't near as hot as it was at the beginning of it, but Craig Simpson was still a very, very effective player out there on the ice. As we go to the bottom row on the far left, we look at a player whose career tapered off very, very quickly. Jimmy Carson for the Los Angeles Kings. Jimmy had a couple of phenomenal seasons at the very beginning of his career, and to say that it all came apart and the wheels fell off, I think would be probably an understatement. I don't think Jim, or Jimmy as he was known, Jim on the card, but Jimmy for real, I don't think Jimmy would probably say that was a bit of an understatement. I think he'd probably like to have seen somewhat of the trend at the beginning of his career continue on through the meat of his career. Unfortunately, that's really not the case and how it ended up playing out. But Jimmy Carson definitely had a couple of years where he was looked at as a bona fide superstar in the National Hockey League. A goaltender who just could not get over the hump. I mean, he couldn't do it. He hacked, he slashed his way. He scored goals. He scored on an empty net. He moved over to the Quebec Nordiques. That didn't seem to pan out. No matter how much he tried to take your ankles out in his crease, Ron Hextall was always a bridesmaid, never a bride, made it to the Stanley Cup Finals, did not bring home that elusive Stanley Cup as a starting goaltender. Ron Hextall, though, definitely an effective goaltender, and a goaltender players would think twice about crowding his crease and making it a difficult night for Ron to see, because he was not playing that, and he was not going to ask nicely for you to please vacate the crease. He was just going to lacerate your calves with his hockey stick. And you can't say he didn't warn you, because he did it to the team before you showed up. In the middle of the bottom row, an Edmonton Oiler and a polarizing figure in the NHL. A player who was fairly decent with his hands, not just fighting, but goal scoring, especially early in his career. A guy who bounced around and played a couple of different positions as his career went on as well. Unfortunately known for somewhat cheap play. He wasn't a guy who enjoyed being on the receiving end of things that weren't necessarily going his way, and he tended to lash out, obviously known for stick swinging at Donald Brashear, and a long suspension that ultimately ended his career. Marty McSorley here with the Edmonton Oilers was a very effective player in the NHL, long before doing anything that dirty, even though he was a little bit dirty even when he first kind of got into the league. He always was known for getting in the mix, but he got a lot of attention on himself and kept some attention off of your superstars, which allowed some space on the ice. He was a guy that Wayne Gretzky definitely liked having around, and Marty McSorley was an effective player. There's no two ways about that. Unfortunately, like I said, reputation somewhat tainted by certain actions, you know? That's one of those things. You can do a million good things, but you do some really egregiously bad things, and that's going to reflect on your legacy. To the right of Marty McSorley, and almost rounding out the honorable mentions list, is a goal scorer's goal scorer, a guy that I love, smooth skating, smooth shooting, Stéphane Richer for the Montreal Canadiens. Wow, when I was a kid, Richer, one of my favorite hockey players, just bury the puck. Like, come on. Just pure hockey talent. French-Canadian hockey talent, too. Like, something about French-Canadian hockey talent that seems to have this grace to it. And Stéphane Richer definitely encapsulated that grace when it came to playing the game of hockey. And on the end, a guy who played in Edmonton for a very short period of time, bounced around between a few teams, definitely not known as Vin. He's not Vin Diesel. Vincent Damphus, another guy, goal scorer. Back checking was a little sus, but very, very productive in the offensive zone. Was a player that made plays happen, good on the power play, but again, limited a little bit capability-wise, doing a few things. A bit one-dimensional. Damphus definitely brought a lot to the table. If his game was a little more rounded out, he probably could have been a guy who you would have seen play in the few more All-Star games than he did play in. That is your honorable mentions list. Now to get to the meat and potatoes of 1987-88. And we started off with number 4. Claude Lemieux here for the Montreal Canadiens. These are all going to be Oates cards. Card number 227 in the set. I know you're thinking Claude Lemieux, but allow me to enlighten you just slightly. I know Claude Lemieux is not in the Hall of Fame, but I would say precipice if the sentiment, again, around a player very polarizing, such as Claude Lemieux, with the rearranging of Chris Draper's face and all, he definitely has left a bit of a legacy. That's the truth. But bear with me as we talk about a man who is hyper effective on the ice. Then we'll get into the prices of the cards, which are obscenely cheap. This entire list makes me sad. Hockey fans, I don't know what we're doing out there, overvaluing new stuff and missing out on players of the caliber on this list. But here, we'll start it off. Claude Lemieux. 4 Stanley Cups, 1986 with the Habs, 1995 and 96 with the Colorado Avalanche, aforementioned, crashing into Chris Draper's face, and 2000 being traded from the Avalanche to the Devils mid-season and then going on to help the Devils win a Stanley Cup. Won a Conn Smythe in 1995 for that playoff run that they won the Cup, and that's on a Colorado Avalanche team that is rife with talent. Like, I mean, we'll just say Sakic and Waugh and Forsberg, and we'll just leave it there. And all the other guys that were on that team, the Adam Foots, the Valerie Kaminskis, the Mike Reed, it was a team, Adam Deadmarsh, stacked with talent. For Claude Lemieux to win that Conn Smythe just goes to show you how effective through the playoffs he was. And you're probably thinking, well, how effective through the playoffs was he? How about this? All-time NHL, he's 9th in playoff goals. 80 total playoff goals for Claude Lemieux. If he wasn't known as a cheap player, I have a feeling Claude Lemieux would almost be a shoo-in for the Hockey Hall of Fame. A PSA 9, criminally underpriced, about $55, $60 American, I don't know. $80 Canadian, it seems criminally underpriced. We know the price of grading is over $50 per slab. You tell me why it's like this. I personally don't know. We know the pop counts are really low. We know getting 10s is ridiculously difficult. I understand a lot of these players, it's not the flavor of the month. These guys are long retired, but honestly, when you look back at the history of things, this is going to become vintage eventually one day, and the prices we see today definitely don't reflect the pricing and demand we see for rookies of today who've proven absolutely nothing, as a matter of fact. PSA pop count totals at 315, only 57 10s, and in raw condition Canadian for a really nice one. You take a look at the cut on this thing, the actual centering, it looks like it's spot on. You're probably going to be looking around 10, maybe 12 bucks, 15 if you're a Claude Lemieux fan and you don't mind paying for a player who really put it on for, won Stanley Cups in 3 different decades with 3 different teams. That's pretty remarkable. Moving on to number 3, as I take a drink of a beverage. Goaltender extraordinaire, Calgary Flames, Detroit Red Wings. That's Mike Vernon. This Calgary Flames Oates card, number 215 in the 87-88 set. PSA 10 for Vernon. This one here went in a buy it now for $259 American. That's getting close to $300 Canadian. I saw one for bids in a 10 as well that went for, I believe it was $230 something American. So very, very similar pricing. PSA pop count, 359 total. So just a few more than Claude Lemieux. 100 10s, right spot on the money there. And raw is going to be about a $12 to $15 card in a really nice shape for Mike Vernon. Again, looking at a guy not in the Hall of Fame. Mike Vernon is a 5-time All-Star, though. 2 Stanley Cups, 89 with the Calgary Flames against the Montreal Canadiens in the 89 finals, and 97 with the Detroit Red Wings. He also won the William Jennings Trophy for best combined save percentage, I believe it is, for a goaltending pair with Chris Osgood in the 96 season for the Detroit Red Wings. Won the Conn Smythe in that 97 series as well. Mike Vernon was a stalwart starting goaltender his entire career. These prices seem relative. I understand this. Claude Lemieux accolades seem to supersede these. Again, sentiment is a little bit muting, and it probably dulls out the value. And now we look at 1 and 2, where I definitely have somewhat of a discrepancy with values. Number 2, one of my favorite players of all time. Not from Hall & Oates, but from Hall & Oates, if that's okay with you. Adam Oates, number 2 on the list, here in a Detroit Red Wings jersey, obviously most known for his time with the St. Louis Blues, on a line with Brett Hull, as Brett Hull was putting up ridiculous goal-scoring numbers. Right alongside him, putting up ridiculous assist numbers, was this man, one of the greatest setup men in the history of the NHL in any era, without any debate. Adam Oates. Card number 1, 2, 3 in this 87-88 set. A PSA 9 is like 80 bucks Canadian. I don't know, let's say 100, because you just like Adam Oates in a 9. I don't even know how I'm supposed to explain that to people. Total 797 with only 90 10s. I guess there are a lot of 9s, 408. Are there not 408 Adam Oates fans in the world? Are we? I'm just not sure. Adam Oates, obviously in the Hall of Fame, and we're going to get to Adam Oates' accolades a little bit more here in a sec. The raw version of this, maybe creeping on $20 Canadian, seems drastically. I think I paid more than that for an Adam Oates rookie card in 1994. To give you, maybe it's just a trend that everybody who's popular in the moment is worth money. And then when you've retired, unless you are Mickey Mantle, it all becomes basically null and void. I'm not entirely sure. Adam Oates, the 5th most assists in the history of the game when the man retired. I believe that was in 2004. No Stanley Cups in his career, but he is in the Hall of Fame because he's one of the greatest setup men ever, retired with almost 1,500 points, and has the most points in the NHL of anyone who played in the NCAA, as he lost a couple seasons to start his career because he actually went to college first. So this rookie card here has Adam Oates a couple of years into a career he could have already been playing, so those stats could have been even larger for a guy with the talent level of Adam Oates, and face-off dynamo to boot. Moving on to the last one and the best one, without question. It wasn't difficult to figure out who number 1 on this list was going to be. Another favorite of mine as a kid. I look at a lot of these prices and I scratch my head. I'm not sure what more Luc Robitaille could have done. He's obviously one on this list. He retired as the highest scoring left winger of all time. He has a Stanley Cup, not with the Kings, even though he's known for his time with the Kings. 3 tenures with the Kings, was a captain a couple of times there. The season Gretzky was gone, and for a little bit of time there in his last tenure with the Kings. But he got his 1 cup with the Red Wings in 2002. But he came back to the Kings as an executive, the director of hockey operations, and won 2 Stanley Cups there with the Los Angeles Kings as well. Number 42 in this set. It's a beautiful card, too, in that throwback Kings jersey. PSA 9, only going to run you about $200 Canadian. That seems criminally underpriced for how good Luc Robitaille was, because, I mean, it just doesn't get much better. The pure goal scoring, well over 600 goals in a career. It's just off the chain. Luc Robitaille, I mean, it's just a generational goal-scoring talent. PSA pop count, as you can see here, fairly high in comparison to other people, but still doesn't seem near as high for the amount of packs that were ripped with this guy's card in them in 87, 88, 1,291, 119 10s, and in raw, probably about 20, maybe 25 bucks. That doesn't seem like a lot. I'm not entirely sure why. Maybe people can clarify for me, but these prices for the Hall of Famers that are generational talents, they seem like they're a little bit underpriced, especially when we consider how low these pop counts are. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe it's just me. I'm Cody from Big Beaver Cards. If you made it this far, subscribe to the channel, like the video, check the back catalog, stay cool, and Anthony, roll yourself that outro. G.